Good day everyone, let's get to hobbying. Today, we'll be building a full set of stuff to play Ritual28, a lovely little indie peace game that isn't going to summon any demons into your dwelling. It needs, as the free rules tell us, a square 1-foot board. I'm against perfect squares, generally, outside of bases, so I'm giving myself wiggle room for that. An idol. I'm going to build this into the board, okay? 2 teams of 4 worshippers each. Okay, I got some plans on these. One easy, the other a little more involved. We'll see how they look next to each other. By the way, I'm building the base as we go, continuing to use the Sawdust of Paris mix. Using toothpicks to quickly put the foam chunks into place, I used a hot wire for the small chunks and a knife to cut out the 1-foot square-like object. Also, I'm putting some bark around the center, which is the unusual part of this board, the idol, which is a wasp's nest. Hopefully they're all dead. I'm not sure. We'll see if there's a surprise. A D6, sure, no big deal. I think I won't DIY this one. And 8 attunement markers, which I could laze out on or build. At this point, I'm not too sure. And a ruler. Got it. Now, I've not played this game yet, but reading the rules, you have to form a geometric pattern around the idol. So I think all that's really necessary is the ability to traverse around the object fairly freely, hence the path around the idol. Now, the game also says you start on opposite sides, so I think the asymmetry is going to give a little replayability to the game. I dislike balance, just for the record. I hope that contextualizes my choices for you a little better. That Sawdust of Paris really lends a nice weight and feel to the board so far, but we're just putting some cultists on bases. Gotta start figuring out the names of these 2 groups of worshippers who dance at the altar of the buzzing god. Just using PVA on the bases, dipping them in sawdust to see how that looks, also pinning them to the bases since these will be game pieces. So I've decided to make some strange little dudes. I've seen a lot of them lately in the communities that I'm in, so I'm going to get in on that craze. So these little Hydroton clay balls seem like a great way to start for that. Mounting them onto the same little 20mm squares as the other cultists, so they seem similar. We'll also douse the bases in the sawdust again to tie the 2 teams together. Use a little isopropanol on top of the sawdust to help make sure that the glue reaches all of the crevices. What kind of a fantasy god couldn't convey themselves through skulls? I got some nice fanged ones here. It'll be a similar process to the balls, but 8 of them this time, so everyone could have one. Although only 1 team ascends in this game, so you could probably get away with 7 of these. Might make a few flaming or something with some heavy gloss gel medium. We shall see. As I said before, little guys. That's what we're making here. I'm mixing green stuff and milliput, as I think it just makes both better. I don't actually know a ton about sculpting, but the best way to learn most things in the hobby is just to do it. Little guys are great for this, as you don't need a ton of material to do the sculpting. Any bead or ball or the like works well as an armature. Shields are another good thing. There was a little competition for that earlier, and crafting shields is a lot of fun. I'm just using water to thin this out, which I think is the main thing milliput gives to the green stuff, is smoothing with water. With just green stuff, I find the need to use Vaseline, or I'm told mineral oil, but I haven't tried that yet. And the Vaseline makes paint not want to stick very well, so you have to clean the sculpts real well. Water just evaporates, no issues. First little guy, foot, mouth, eye, done. They don't all need everything. These are proto-Blemmyes. They're the leftovers, malformed, which is a great excuse. Next one up went a little Elden Ringy. Must be trying to ascend himself. Dangerous game courting the favor of other gods when you yourself are making a claim to the thrones. Last one up, I gave an eye. And the foot's not quite so good, but that's okay. Struggled to think of the next thing to give them. Started on a mohawk style deal, but quickly decided that it's more like a large beetle maggot on his back. Angry-eyed beetleback guy. I've liked the Blemmyes myth since the moment I first saw it. Headless men, Triskelions and all, with all those body parts being assigned so lopsidedly, surely the earth must also have a lot of spares that they spew forth from the dark crevices that lead to the underworld. So yeah, proto-Blemmyes. We'll probably have larger, proper Blemmyes at some point as well. If anyone else is interested in them, I must recommend the game Dominions. It has a very well done mod for the nation of U, which is comprised entirely of the wonderful critters. The guy who wrote it also wrote some excellent lore for them. I don't think I'll be using that much, but I can't deny there will be some influence. So, thank you to Aether Nomad for creating the mod. Last guy almost ended up looking like a semi-beholder. That works. Another little thing that forms in the crevices of Valanus when nothing is watching. Doing another look over the board after priming, and yeah, I couldn't resist putting toothpicks into the wasp nest. It was so compulsory when I put the two together that I forgot to even record it. I did record the sawdust pathing process though, covering up mistakes, trying to make things a little less square. Honestly, I'm already thinking of the next board and how I'll do it better. Probably will be another ritual board, maybe not more cultists. We'll see. But here, I'm laying down lines of glue and then spraying it with slightly watered down isopropanol to make it spread, sawdust over the top, more of the wet water, isopropanol, over top to help the glue spread throughout the mess. Once I'm done laying all these out, I upturn the board over a garbage can and shake a bit so any excess sawdust should mostly fall off. Now I tried using a spray adhesive to fully attach the remaining sawdust. That may not have gone very well. It's just kind of rendered the board slightly sticky. I don't think this was the proper product to use, if it was still effective, as the bottle is over a decade old. Ah well, such things are just happy accidents we'll plow over with dust and paint. Speaking of paint, let's start. We'll do up the lady cultists before the proto-Blemmyes. I want to paint some flowers and vines on them, or at least use those colors. We'll see what ends up happening. I start, as will become normal, with asphaltum. I mix other things into it to tint it one way or another, either the hooker's green or some terra rosa, maybe a bit of quinacridone violet, which we're adding to the palette, though it'll mainly be used more later. Anyways, asphaltum over the robes, violet on the base, and some terra rosa on the fleshy bits, which we then wipe off with a sponge. The time it takes to do all four is long enough that you can start wiping away the first one once you're done applying the oils to the last. Afterwards, I go over a lightly to moderately dry brushing brilliant yellow pale to smooth things out and reinforce light, as well as to give a little grip and opacity to further paint I put over. It will muddle things, but we're not at the saturating step, if we'll even do that on these. I like to stay grimy and desaturated a great deal of the time. I'm adding a little cold wax medium onto my palette as well for this. It's supposed to matte oil paintings out pretty strongly. It's normally used for more impasto works where you sculpt slightly with the paint, but we won't really be doing that here on miniatures, not right now at least. We're mixing it wildly with the usual odorless spirits and neomeglip, which, when combined, seem to dry pretty quickly on many colors. Not acrylic fast, but it can help for getting this first layer glazable over. We're also using a bit of this Naples orange. I've heard this talked about as basically just a cheat for Caucasian skin tone, and that looks accurate. It is strangely weak, however, I'm finding. That's alright though. I think it may work wonderfully for later steps and on larger models with more skin. I might do a bust soon, just to try that out. Okay, let's start marking down where the vines are gonna go. Mostly on the ass, I'm thinking, and as a kind of trim, maybe? At least on the lower 2/3 or so. We've added radiant green to the palette, and we'll mix that with a good deal of the hooker's green to create this kind of a mid-tone. It'll apply pretty smoothly and solidly, mixing in the lower areas with the remaining asphaltum to create an earthy shadow. That's the idea, at least. I try not to be too worried if the oils don't interact as I expect. Especially mixing so many solvents like this, I just try and sort it out in my mind for the future. After that's roughed in, we'll go over with a new mix of the mid-tone mixed into brilliant yellow pale and Indian yellow. This will make a very nice, vibrant green that will really start to define what we're wanting to do. I don't really have a reference or anything, I'm just making good squiggles and the like. We'll try and make it make sense later, or embrace madness. I'm hoping that quinacridone violet down the line is going to mix together with the Egyptian violet for some wonderful grape tones. Daughters of Gaia, women of the field and flower, cultivators, conservators, connoisseurs. Perhaps this is a ritual they undergo each year to keep the buzzing god's dying mind quiet, so as to not stir the droning ravenous hordes that satiated themselves upon the vines in ages past, each thorny spear still skewered into their hive-like mind, keeping them from returning once more. The quinacridone violet is going on quite nicely over the top now, adding a lot of lovely contrast to each dress. At this scale, I just try and do vague impressions. If you get the lights about right, your mind can fill in the rest. My eyes aren't quite good enough anymore to be too exact. Not to worry though. The really important bit to me is that the colors are right for the story in my head, and we're right on track for that. Mixing a light purple from all our purplish colors and just a touch of yellow, we apply a loose highlight unblended with quick little soft jabs. Pay attention to the shape of your tip, utilize it until you can't, and then reapply paint in a twirling motion to reform the point. I use very cheap brushes and abuse them, so if you do similar, don't feel afraid to break out a new one as you need. A slight Indian yellow tint of the brilliant yellow pale works to bring out the highlights of the hood and collar of each figure. Nice and simple. Should be easy to just blend through brush strokes. Just use your brush to your advantage, using the flattened side to catch ridges and surfaces, just as when dry brushing acrylics. Just softer and more intentional now. We'll mix up a quick stain here of quinacridone violet, Indian yellow, and asphaltum, of course. This gives us a good start for the whole model. A little mopping up later, and we're off to the races. Using a chromatic black made of Egyptian violet and the hookah's green, reads as black, so it is. That's all chromatic black means. Blemmyes are not creatures with a soul. They are created entities without purpose. Senseless, unending creation, billowing forth from the womb of the world, wriggling their way free of crevices, and given whatever amalgamation of body parts that the stone could remember. Though born from rock and stone, they are made of flesh, and as such, suffer. With no aim or purpose given, they roam, wandering, amalgamating into gangs, or rarely even a tribe, generally led by the largest of a group, but more often devoured by the ever-hungry creatures that roam the land. Still though, this group lives, and seeks to curry favor with the low buzz that numbs their minds. They are easily led astray by magical suggestion, especially those that lack the ability to hear to begin with, as many are not born with the ears, or many other limbs, such that when they first hear a suggestion, magical, supernatural, or otherwise, they will yearn to hear it again. It is thus a common sight to see especially these proto-Blemmyes, the lowest of creatures, congregating around the graves of deities on the verge of being snuffed out. Drawn by the whispers, they dance endlessly around the hive, believing. Anyways, Though we do the usual opaque stuff, using a lot of the Naples orange just to try it out, mixing a violet in gives a wonderful lip and orifice color, because who can tell what's what? I think, mainly using the skulls as markers, so we won't go too deep with them. I mix a wash of quinacridone violet and an Indian yellow, apply it, violet on the base, so that it'll tie in well, and we'll get the sticks with black once we rim the edges as final touches. No need to go crazy on these, I feel. Okay, so it's mostly primed white. I dumped more glue and sawdust on over top of the primer. There's still some loose, no worries. I'm gonna apply a bunch of dots of strong transparent paints and then apply an unhealthy amount of odorless spirits to just get everything everywhere. I don't plan too much on this. I just enjoy making my terrain a lot of strong colors. Volanus is kind of a dreamy place. Time doesn't always have meaning, colors bleed into each other unnaturally, wizards and the like have really messed this place up. I almost think of the wilds between civilization as equal parts magic and apocalypse. I'm definitely the kind of person that buys into magic just being every color wildly at once, which I think this palette does okay at. The Hookos green is still kinda weak, but it'll do. Don't think that one's gonna stay in the rotation though. Indian yellow and the quinacridone violet are the real heroes here, pulling most of the weight. I usually use burnt sienna in place of terra rosa, but that's just because I usually use burnt sienna instead of terra rosa. They function very similarly in my experience. Getting paint to go into the hive was a little troublesome, but I think it being a little desaturated next to its surroundings kind of works. This is, as said before, the pinned brain of a dying god, so perhaps color would start to fade on them. Always an important part. No matter what color you decide, painting those rims really helps a model look finished and ready. Occasionally, I'll do it earlier if I'm stumped on what to do next. Lets you just look at the model and think on your options a bit. Next, I decided this needed more texture. Wasn't too happy with how just the plaster of sawdust was shaping up. Needed to hide some of the squariness of the foam. So I busted out the PVA glue once more and a squirt bottle with the watered down stuff that I hadn't really watered down enough initially, so it looked kind of unfortunate. But I tried working with it. At the end, I water it down properly for a final misting. With the tobacco, I'm pinching it down into ground cover. No other uses for it anymore. I don't smoke anymore. Not that stuff. Place it generously around for the glue and water to grab hold of. Glad I have the vanilla stuff, as it smells pretty nice. Then I break out the dusts once more. And this time, we ain't sticking with brown. We're busting open Tuesday and pulling out a turquoise and jaundice, plus a little Thursday blues and maybe some magenta too. Things are wet, the brush is disgusting, mash it on in and spray another layer of the watered down glue to set everything. Hopefully this works. The daughters of Gaia gaze upon the grave of the buzzing god and see misfortune. Half-formed limbs given the barest vagaries of sentience. Begging and dancing around the dais of the grotto, they clamber up upon the cliff in fright at the sight of the coven, but are too far gone in the madness of malformity and the intoxicating buzzing that soothes their aching minds. They will not give up, not without some sign that the altar rejects them. The daughters proceed with the ritual. The misfortune of the Blemmyes is a common one, frightening, but usually harmless. The ritual must be done, and so the dance begins. Stepping gracefully around the scintillating environment under the dual suns of this desolate age. The buzzing has turned to a drone that can be heard far beyond the walls of this canyon. The Blemmyes see this dance and begin falling down the mountain against the daughters, who deftly step aside and begin their dance, scrawling around the ground, fumbling through rock and stone, afraid to lay a hand upon the priestesses. The Blemmyes confusedly screech and bellow forth dry screams, trying to awaken the buzzing in their minds. The screams are unheeded as the daughters lay hands upon the dead god, dancing around as a maypole, their soothing voices beginning to cause the drone to fade, for the numbing of the Blemmyes' pain to subside, as they fled into the wilds, likely to be devoured by some beast that spots an easy, fleshy meal. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, do the like and subscribe and all that. I had a lot of fun making this again, and there should be more soon. And welcome to Villanis. I do think it'll be fun, focusing more on the world building side after talking with a friend. It was something I always kind of did, but writing it down has been a lot more fun than I thought it would be. Have a good one.